Welcome, everybody. Welcome so much. Oh, hold on. Anon is here. So, what is here right now? What is here right now? That's not a concept.
Life.
Breathing.
Stephanie's saying breathing is not a concept, Michael, because I must do
No, I meant what was here right now was breathing.
it. So, do we even need to call it breathing? What if we don't even, like, does a baby know what breathing is, even though it's called breathing? And yet baby still breathes, I notice. It's like we're so busy engaged with thinking and thoughts that somehow what's ever present goes unnoticed. But just like there can be addictions for quote bad stuff, there can also be addiction to this, which I would say is a good addiction. You begin to notice what is here without concepts more and more. You spend time with it, you get to know it. So yes, I'm going to say a dirty word right now. It can appear as a process, as a deepening. It can get more stable or solid just to tell a story. More obvious that there's always this presence here that is not saying anything, is not doing anything. It just is.
Is it okay to ask questions?
Yes, please jump in, Stephanie.
Well, because I have kind of like a well, not burning, okay, smoldering question, but the mind using, because it was kind of what you were talking about, is can you use the mind to kind of do this? Because it seems like when Manny and I in the morning we read, non-dual things. And it seems like on the mornings that we have time to do that, that when we live up in the mountains and we have to drive down the hill to get to town. So when I drive down the hill, it seems like I'm more likely to have a tree say hello, or I don't know, or I'm more likely to I don't know. It's different, and so I'm using the mind in a way, but the mind obviously can't do it. Um, so I don't know. It's like maybe I don't have to like kill the mind.
No.
Yeah. So maybe that was the question.
Yeah, that's a freedom right there. That's a like it's it's huge because the mistake that we all innocently make is that we are the mind, that the mind is us. And so when the mind is schizophrenic, we feel like we're schizophrenic.
Mhm.
And if the mind is calm for 2 seconds, then we want to try and get it back to that calm place. And it never works. So it turns out, and I like to pose it as a question, is how do you know you're your mind? Because the mind tells you you are. The mind says, hey, we're in a lot of trouble right now. We? I don't know if you guys ever heard that old joke about the Lone Ranger in Tonto. I don't know. Do people still know who the Lone Ranger in
Yeah.
Tonto is these days?
Think
So
so.
one day, the Lone Ranger and his sidekick, his Indian sidekick Tonto, are out scouting, and suddenly they're surrounded by enemy Indians. And um, the Lone Ranger looks at Tonto and says, "Wow, looks like we're in trouble." And Tonto says, "What you mean, we, paleface?" It's so it's so funny that when we identify with the dream, we get into trouble because then it's as if it's real and we need to do something about it. But when you're dreaming at night, what exactly is it that you're doing?
Projecting images.
Well, how are you doing that? You're asleep.
The dreamer's doing it. Yeah.
Well, you can say it, Manny. It's just happening.
Yeah. It's almost like life is happening, then I'm defining it. I'm giving it a reason. And then I try to have a cause. This is the reason it happened.
Yeah. So
That
are you
kind of thing.
sure you're doing that, or
No,
is the mind doing that?
the mind's just doing it. Yeah.
Well, you know, with with the question of who's doing it or how do you know whatever, there, of course, there's a presupposition in there that if we start thinking about, am I doing it? Is the mind doing it? But that presupposes there's a you of some type that's doing it, or
Mhm.
some type of entity. And while we could focus on, well, is it the mind or, but it actually kind of reinforces um, that there is a type of you or something doing it, even to ask the question, who's
Well,
doing it, or you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
well, I don't, let's go into that. Let's take a look. Does saying that there's a you, what would it be reinforcing?
That there is a you and there's something separate. And I'm not saying it's purposely doing that, but it sort of implies there's something and then there's a mind and it comes like it almost like two things.
That's what it seems like to me. So,
Yeah, because there's the mind, and then the mind has this ability to imagine anything. And the freedom is not in the mind. It's not trying to fix the mind. And that's what we do as seekers. I want better thoughts. I want the seeking to drop. I have demands as a seeker. But this is kind of asking a different question at this meeting. We're not, this is a meeting about already. You are what you seek already.
Well, you are what you seek already. But again, there's no you. It goes back, I think, to what Harvey was saying. You are you are what you seek already. Well, there's no you to begin with, and there's no seeking happening.
Is there life happening?
Yeah, exactly. What is happening now? See, I don't know. I don't know what's happening now. The suffering was when I thought I did know.
But again, like I always like to say, suffering is also this. So it's not like, well, I was suffering, now I found non-duality, or I found God, or I found whatever. Now I'm not suffering. And there's that separation again.
Mm-mm.
Like, this is better than this, or I suffered, now I'm not suffering. But there is no such thing as suffering for the individual anyway. So these claims that are being made, I mean, they're being made and they're fine because that's what's happening.
Well, okay. So what's being shared here is that everything is it already.
Right, exactly. I agree. Oh, okay. Okay, got it. So oh, beautiful. I love that. So all stories, whether I feel separate or not separate, non-duality, duality, God's running the show, it's all materialistic, whatever you want to say. Okay,
Yes,
okay, that's it.
that's it. You
Got
got
it.
it.
Okay, very
Thanks.
cool. Meeting over. That's pretty freeing. That's pretty open.
You know, that whole better than thing is what fueled seeking. You know, it's gonna be better. It's gonna, it's gonna be better. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna whatever wherever that what that was. Um, that whole seeking thing. I mean, we've done that for gosh, since the 80s. And man, it's amazing how it is like the donkey and the carrot, it's
Hmm.
always out there, and it keeps you going, going, going. And then you think, well, yeah, I'm a little better, and then but no, I slip back, and I don't know, it's just crazy. And that, when I look at it now, and then it's kind of like what Don was saying, it's like whatever is happening, I mean, there's not a better than. If I was a drunk in a gutter, it's not necessarily, in my opinion, that I'm less spiritual, you know. Actually, I've been a drunk in the gutter. And so, but, sorry, oversharing, but I'm an alcoholic, so I've been a drunk in the gutter. And but it's not necessarily any worse than,
No, there's
anything else.
still, Stephanie, there's still not a you, whether you're drunk in the gutter or the King of England.
Yeah.
Mhm. All those are attributes. Is it possible just to be what we are? What no, well, not even what we are. It can just to be, and there's life happening, and then thought appears, and it's doing its thing, going this way or that way, and it's just aware of it. It's just aware of the brilliance of it. It's almost like it's fresh and new right here, right now.
The freedom here The freedom is seeing that emotions can arise. Emotions can arise without resistance. And even the non-freedom, of course, that's it. But I can say here that the freedom is that emotions can arise, um, stories can arise, thoughts can arise without the resistance. The difference is, at least for me here, is there's just no resistance, and that's the freedom. There can be grief that arises, move through the grief, and then it's done. There can be anger that arises, move through the anger without judgment, not judging, even though judgment is it. But the freedom, let's talk about that. The freedom is just seeing that it's all of it is fucking welcomed here. Whereas I could say there was a time where none of that was welcomed. There was a time when there were thoughts of this shouldn't be happening. And there was resistance, and that's what hurts. That's what felt like suffering. Even though it was it. Of course, everything is it, but honestly, here and seeing that all of that can be here without the resistance.
Yeah.
And so that's the freedom. It's just being human and allowing everything to be as it is without resistance. The resistance for me was what hurt.
Yes.
Even though
Yeah.
this has always been here. But this body wants to move through the resistance. It doesn't,
Yeah.
it's a natural. So there was a teaching or a thought or a belief that I have to go through healing, or there was like the sensation to pull away from the thoughts. The thoughts shouldn't be happening, or maybe if I do enough affirmations, and that it was all bogus because the thoughts are still coming up, and it was just an illusion that was believed in one time. And that's another thing. Beliefs and stories can arise, but then there's disidentifying from it. So that's the freedom. It's like, oh, that's not really happening.
Derek, if I could ask a question, when for you that the moving through resistance or the allowing whatever there is, there's sort of an assumption I'm making that it's not a doing that you had to do it. It's just happening, but there's not a willful volitional, like I got to get through it, or I've got to feel it, or I've got to welcome it, rather than it's just the welcoming is just welcoming, and the allowing is just allowing, but there's not a doingness in it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's hard to put into words, like
Yeah.
getting triggered and seeing that, what's feeling that, it's just being seen and felt through the body. And then it's okay. Like I keep saying there's an okayness, whereas there
Mhm.
wasn't an okayness. So it's language really kind of fucks this up really bad because it's so hard
Mhm.
to put into words. But what you just said, yes. Yes.
Would you say that, again, just sort of reflecting, and if I can use that word, that there is, on one hand, you could say there's an awareness of it or a witness of it, or is it not even that? Even that is, or is it just, I can't even find the words for it. In other words, would you say I'm aware of it, or is it just, it's just what's happening without a witness or that which is aware? Do you know what I'm sort of going with that?
Yes, I do because it's hard to put into words. I would just,
Yeah,
for me, it's just seeing. I don't know. I mean, awareness, saying that there's an awareness is saying that there's someone, that there's an
yeah.
entity in here being aware. It's a good question, very good question. Or someone being witness. I feel like it's seen here and felt as something beyond that. Or behind that. It's the bird before the bird concept, or not concept, but just it's like the bird before the bird. but I wouldn't say it's witnessing.
Yeah, like a just seeing or just hearing
Yes,
without any
yes,
further elaboration. It's like
yes,
just seeing full stop and not moving any. It's just that.
yes, 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 happening. Yes, yes. Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Uh-huh.
It seems as though the mind is just a complete illusion, and anything and all of these questions and answers are of the mind, and they feel very illusory. Even so, we talk about like beingness or awareness, but to articulate the beingness or the awareness is of the mind, which feels illusory. To experience it without articulating it,
Mm.
is one thing, but to once you start using the mind to describe it, to talk about it, it just starts to feel a bit illusory to me.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
More, can I ask something? I've wondered this, and I don't have any definite answer, but when we use the word mind, is it just that we take those thoughts that are innocently occurring, or the conditioning, whatever, and then we put it under that category of the mind as if there was a mind? And it's a good word for conversing and to use the word mind, but is there really a mind, or is it just a lot of things that just come up and we just aggregate like a flip book? We're flipping through it. We say there's a frog, a toad turning into a frog, but actually it's just each page. It's just like things showing up, and then we call it the mind.
Well, the idea of a mind is just more thoughts. It's
Yeah.
just is you the only way to articulate this or to talk about this is to use the mind. It's like trying to bite your own teeth. You know,
Mhm.
it you know anything that's said about the mind just appears illusory. It's inescapable. It feels like you can't grasp it. You can't even the idea of grasping it or trying to grasp this goes nowhere.
Mm. Beautiful, Amor. Mm.
Maybe
Yeah,
because in a way there's nothing to grasp.
yeah, exactly. It turns out the mind is not the bad guy. It gets all the blame because we identify as it. So it's just if the mind is free to do what it does, there's a freedom in that.
Mm.
I'm not my mind. That was huge here because when you think you are your mind, then you're going to try and fix it. But when you see you're not your mind, hallelujah. Then it can do what it wants and it says a lot of funny shit throughout the day, much of it inappropriate, I have to say. But there's no longer that angst or the hating or wishing it wouldn't be as it is.
Mm.
I would say, Michael, that the apparent personality is made up of the mind, which none of it actually, I would say, exists in the first place. The the personality, the thought processes that makes up Amor or Michael, so to say, um, that's the mind, which ultimately doesn't even exist. So there is no me. It's not that I'm not the mind. I'm not anything separate from already what is, and not even. What a mind fuck, right?
Krishnamurti had a book called Freedom from the Known, Freedom from the Known. And you don't need to read that whole book.
Mm.
Everything and again, we don't know what mind is. Mind is a label for what, you know, there's just no way of knowing. So, but there can be a piece because of that little misidentification. And I agree, Amor. I don't know. It's not just you're not the mind. There's no you. So you could say that everything you know is courtesy of the mind.
Yeah, there's this illusion that there's these pinpointed separate me's, and there is actually no pinpointed separate me's. It's all just one, so to say, but not even. And the separate me's that appear are these apparent different minds. So if we're talking from one level, then what we appear to be is the mind. We but we're not even that. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if we were to say if I was to say I am the mind, I would be referring to this apparent illusory persona that when you look at Amor, you see this persona Amor. Well, that's the mind. That's Amor. That's the mind that we call Amor, but that doesn't even exist.
Well, I have to say, it doesn't matter to me whether something exists or not. There's just this. I don't, we can say this isn't happening. We can say nothing's happening. We can say everything's happening. All I know is I'm enjoying my Wednesday evening with some friends at a Zoom meeting.
When you were talking earlier about resisting, because that's what the mind does. It resists what's being put in front of it, the experience that's handed to it. And if it resists it, it doesn't like that. Because it feels like it's not what it wants. So, but bottom line is we're talking about that's included also. That's part of the whole. But it's an apparent thing that seems to be separate from the whole. All of the thoughts, feelings, emotions, all of those things that create the minds, all our memories of the past are within that framework of the hard drive, the mind. And so it's outside of the freshness. It's in the past already. What if it's in the past and I'm kind of recreating it so that I could identify with something as opposed to there's no one here.
I got a question for you, Manny. Who are you without any beliefs?
I'm okay.
Like, do you need a
I
belief?
would be okay. I'd be that.
Do you need do you need any belief
No,
to be what you already are right now and what you've always been and what
no,
everybody's always been all along?
no, no, no. That's the thing. That's how simple it is.
It's
And
too
that's,
simple.
yeah, because the mind wants to get in there and try
Yeah.
to,
But Manny, like the magician, we can expose the trick. The mind sees each word at face value. It
mhm,
believes in the shell game.
mhm,
It's invested in it. It's interested. What's being pointed at here is what's here without any concept. So you're not even going to mind.
yeah.
Hmm. You know, what I was thinking is when Harvey was talking about the flip book, if you if the if even just thinking about the mind as being the flip book, that like it's that appearance of being something. I mean, like motion pictures, I mean that's the whole basis of it. It's just frames, and then it looks like people are like walking and stuff is happening, but nothing is happening. It's just a bunch of images. It's a flip book, but you know, that is scary to me. That's kind of scary. And yet what Indira was talking about sounded very um, you know, sounded great. I mean, if I could let, like, if I get a resentment towards someone, and if so, that means that I'm negative. I have an expectation about what they were going to do. They didn't do it. I'm negative. If I could somehow let that just, if that went through me in a neutral way, to me that would be just amazing. You know,
Okay.
because suffer, it wouldn't, it'd be the lack of suffering.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, and then Indira, I'll throw it to you. But so that thing that you're resisting, you're aware of it. Is that correct?
Right.
So if you're aware of it, it can't be you.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, well, wait a minute though, but I think it is me. I do think it's me. I think it's me by God, and I'm going to fight for that to the death, right? So, yeah, okay. All right.
Well, this is all resonance, you know? If I throw out a pointer like if you're aware of it, then it can't be you because you're what's aware of it. That can resonate or not. That
Yeah.
can be investigated or not.
Right.
Stephanie, when you mentioned the frames, like in a film, and each frame is actually, we think of a movie as continuity, or it's becoming like the plot's moving along, but every frame is actually totally complete unto itself
Right.
in
Right.
that isness. And so it's interesting because every I wouldn't say moment, but every like that frame, it's complete, absolutely totality. It just it just is. And I guess the other thing is, with the mind, I often think that when we're grasping or pushing away things, resisting or grasping, that that keeps the so-called mind going. It thrives on future and past of projecting. I want more of this, or I don't want anything, or I don't want something, and that sort of keeps the persona, the character going.
Mm, right.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
So everything that's being said here is true because there's everything is being said by whatever it is that speaks or speaking is happening, and so it's all absolutely correct, perfect, right on. It can't be anything but perfect. And also it, and and somehow it's enough for me to be here with all of you, um, speaking this, however this is happening. It's all being spoken, and I appear to be here as you appear to be here, whatever. And and it doesn't make any difference what's said, and it doesn't make any difference whether I agree or disagree, or go into a story, or
Yeah.
like your story or not like your story, or whatever. All I can say, you mentioned it before, Michael, is that I really love hanging with you guys, talking. I love hanging with you guys, listening to speaking happening. You're right. Listening to speaking happening. Love it.
Don, I love hearing you talk every week. You know, Don, the mind overcomplicates something that's so simple. But here's the shit show. The mind overcomplicating something that's so simple is that simplicity itself. It's inescapable.
It's beautiful.
John, it's like whatever is said here, nothing that is said is either better or worse than anything else because there's nothing special. Everything is just what it is. And that's it. And that's the full stop right there. So whatever shows up is whatever shows up. And the mind will try to complicate it and say this is good or this is bad, but it's just like the frames in the film. It's just whatever shows up.
Yeah, I was sharing with a beautiful friend today. I was sharing with him that how I've noticed from last year and this year, going into this year, that noticing that whatever the body does that used to identify with good and bad, it was so heavy. And now it's like whenever the body is doing something that would be labeled by the mind as not good, it's just not there. I've been seeing that, and it's like, wow, it's like, it's okay that the body is doing this or that without that label. It's just, yeah, it's not good or bad. There's no such thing as that. Isn't that something? Wow. So free to be. It's a big love story here going on. Falling in love with itself. And no matter what the body does.
I once heard somebody say that if the body got cancer, cancer cells, and everybody goes, it's horrible, and what are you going to do? But that also is just what's happening. And so, we immediately label it as, oh, it's terrible. And I understand that. But at a very deep level, that's what's happening too. It's just without a good or bad, at a very profound level, that's just what's unfolding, life unfolding.
Well, as someone who's had prostate cancer and had 45 rounds of radiation treatment, yes, it can be the most scary thing you can imagine, and it can also be the biggest gift
Mm.
because all bodies are temporary. Sooner or later, cancer or no cancer, doesn't matter. So there's a wake up. Am I my body? I notice when I believe I'm my body, I suffer. So that was looked into just like the mind. Am I my mind or am I not? Am I my body or am I not?
Yeah, when it's seen that way, that solidity is like, it's nowhere to be found. It's just a softening.
Yeah, beautiful, Indira. And I notice here that what is inside this Michael's body, so to say, looking out, is ageless. Maybe some of you can relate. What's in here does not feel like it has a date on it. I couldn't tell you how old I am.
I love that. That's so sweet. Yeah.
Michael, that was beautiful because how often do we identify with age or when we identify and then but in that stillness, there's no real like age or you know what I mean? It's just you're pointing to something that's very beautiful and hard to describe.
Yeah, it is beautiful. But also, I want to say that if you have an age thing and you think you're getting older and you're deteriorating and all that kind of stuff, that also in those moments where I'm old, I'm gonna die, I hate myself, that even stuck, I'll call it stuck in that. That also that also is it. One doesn't need to find freedom from that, or the freedom is in that already. It's already there, so you could feel free and great and young eternally, which I'm seeking, or or and I will seek till I end, but or and yet I come to these meetings, right? Uh, but or you can lately I've been practicing. I think Michael mentioned to me. I was just like when I'm really down or whatever, or really trashing myself. Put it that way. Like that's okay. That is what that is what is happening. That is the speaking. That is the listening. That is the and and there's freedom. I think there's freedom. There's freedom without having to change. You don't have to have. You can be miserable. You can be miserable and free. They there's no separation. I'll say between misery, between suffering and freedom. There's no separation. It's just this.
Yeah, they're all calling to itself. That was beautiful.
It's all freedom. It's like water drowning water. It's all freedom, and not even.
Yeah, it's funny how everything is so literal. Like that in Indira's, that's it. You can't outrun it. Like whatever, however you're expressing is already it. And that's the laughter. Like that's when you realize you can't outrun this. It's always whatever expression is happening, that's it.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Without it wanting to be other than that.
Boy, you know what struck me is that we're always seeking unconditional love, and and that's what you just said. What that is unconditional, to me, unconditional love. Yeah, it's like whatever expresses itself. Yeah, that's just so amazing. I mean, it's so different from the conditioning, it's because the conditioning is so, yeah, not okay, that everything's not okay. So many things are not okay. And instead of just whatever manifests is it. I mean, and it's okay. Wow. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, already.
Yeah, already. I love that already thing. I just kind of heard that. And that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
Michael brought it up a while
Yeah,
back.
that's lovely. Yeah, I like that.
And
It's
and
beautiful, Stephanie.
and Ducey, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the reason already is so beautiful to me is because I thought, well, if it's already, then it's done. I,
Mm.
if it's already the case, I'm like, okay, and so what can be discovered is not a happening because it's already. So it ain't happening. It's it's already the case. You're already free. You're already the unconditional love. It's just that we get so lost in mind that suddenly all those other things like judgment and guilt and I'm trying my best, but it's not working out, all that. When you allow the mind and try a lot, let the mind do what it wants. Just observe it. Like you were observing a strange bird that you noticed on your porch and you'd never seen this bird before. I'm just going to be quiet and see what this bird's all about.
Mhm.
What
Yeah,
if you, oh,
oh,
sorry, go
sorry.
ahead.
No, I just had this flash of it's kind of out there of like when Jesus was on the cross and said, and I'm not a Jesus person specifically, but and said it is finished. It's like that's what this reminded me of for some reason, that it's not, it's not what we think it is. It's not at all what I think it is. But excuse me for interrupting.
It's finished. That's a beautiful interpretation of that,
Mhm.
Stephanie. I like that one.
Mhm.
I was thinking of that frame again in the film because it's already done. It's complete. It's it's already everything that it needs is already there to be what that frame is.
Oh yeah.
From moment to moment.
Oh
Mhm.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, who's running the projector? That's the question.
Yeah, that's right.
Running
Wow.
itself.
Don, you're the best.
No one is. No one is.
Yeah, nobody.
Well, Don, there,
Amor is.
there is no projector.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Point.
Like
Mm.
there's a real freedom in realizing there just isn't a right or wrong way to talk about this. Even the way it's expressed that you just deplore. You're like, my God, how are they even saying such crap? That's that's e that's equally as much it as the most profound thing you've ever heard.
Mm.
I think it was Jim Newman that said, it's all this. I mean, what else? Show me something other than this. Like you're free to not like stuff.
To resist stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's the
Yeah,
spirit.
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
free to resist.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it can dawn like you're also free to just watch it, to
Yeah.
allow it. And it's funny when you give feelings and emotions and sensations and thoughts space, when you give it space without trying to get rid of it. You're
Mm.
not giving it space for a purpose to get rid of it. You're being with it in a genuine way. And what happens when someone's with us in a genuine way? How does that make us feel?
Mm,
Mm.
It's what's happening right now. 9 people being genuine. And then or that uh not radiance, that resonance that you talk about. 9 people being real, being just as they are. And this is like a result of that, or this is that. And that's beautiful,
mm.
truly, truly beautiful. And already, right?
Mhm.
Already. I like that. Yeah, already. with nobody running the projector.
Mhm.
My God.
Mm.
Harvey, are there any words to describe this in the various teachings that you deal with?
Well, a phrase came to me before because I teach a college course on Buddhist philosophy, but there's a phrase from it says, if everything is Buddha nature, then where is one to look?
Mm,
Mm.
Everywhere.
sweet.
There's nowhere to look.
Then comes
There's,
to an end. It's almost like, yeah,
yeah,
it
and
comes
that
to an
yeah,
end.
if everything. So whatever the word, this Buddha nature, you could use any word in there, blah blah blah, But
Yeah.
if everything is Buddha nature, then there's nowhere to look. The seeking, because wherever you look, that's it. It's over. The seeking is over then.
Yeah.
And there's nothing separate to look.
Yeah, it's not that. That's it. It's interesting, Manny, that in a lot of the what I'll call the wisdom traditions, they turn into religions with rules and regulations and all that nonsense, kind of, which is it too. But very often, very often that wisdom, or it's said maybe in different ways in different words, and there's no real phrase that's exactly, it's like poetry in a way, but it's there in many of those wisdom traditions. And then what happens, people hear it, they conceptualize it, and they turn it into rules and regulations and the Bible thumping and all that other stuff, you know,
Religion. Yeah.
into religion. But when even the word religion um, comes from Jiddu Krishnamurti pointed this out, that religion means to come to the binding together, the coming back together. Everything. I saw Krishnamurti once in person. I went out to Ojai right before he died,
Mm.
and talked about this is sort of interesting, but um, he would criticize every religion, whether it's Buddhism, Christian. He could criticize everybody, but but I remember too, at one point after he had done all that, he's sitting on a chair with his hands under his, sitting very humbly. And he says, but in that silence, there is something, and I remember this, so sacred, so quiet, beyond anything at all that could be said. And I remember in the room I was in, you could almost feel this silence, this stillness wafting. It's so hard to describe. And then he looks out and he goes, "It's so holy and so sacred." And then he says, "It is finished." The same thing that Jesus said. He said, "It's
Mhm.
finished." And he got up. He gets up from the chair, and some of the people in the audience started to clap. And he said, "Stop. You're not clapping for me, you're clapping for you, the persona." And he
Right.
just humbly he walked off. But I just remembered that moment, that when he talked about that stillness, that something that was beyond all words, that is so sacred, and that we can't, and that's not even touchable, because that would he just used it. And I just remembered it was so profoundly resonant.
Mm. That's beautiful.
Yeah, please. So no one start clapping. Any last comments, questions, or sharings before we close out this evening?
Just a quick one of the overall feeling that I get, because this is the first time I've been here, but is just this huge silence, but also I get that feeling like also the complete diametrically opposed feeling of Bugs Bunny when he comes to a screeching halt. It's like the mind, wants to do something. Dang it. And yet, and at the same time, there's this huge, beautiful silence. So thank you so much.
Mm.
That's
Appreciate
why Stephanie Bugs Bunny said at the end, that's all, folks.
it.
Ah,
That's right.
perfect.
It wants to land, but there's nowhere to land. That was beautiful, Stephanie.
Neat.
Yeah. Yeah, you already are it. Then it
Yeah,
just becomes a celebration. The
Mhm.
mind's free to play, emotions are free to come. It's all welcomed. It's
yeah.
beautiful.
That's why that full stop is really good. And even Vernon Howard, when he said all is well,
Yeah, that's what I meant.
just
Like he
yeah,
implied
Yeah.
it.
yeah. You're right, Michael. At the end of each of his talks, he would bring in something higher. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
he was non-dual in the last 5 minutes of his videos. So,
Oh yeah, no, I
Uh,
saw it.
yeah. All
Beautiful.
right.
Thank you guys. Manny, Stephanie, welcome for your first time. Such a pleasure. Indira, always a pleasure. Amor, thank you, brother. Always great. Harvey, everyone's favorite philosophy teacher. Dawn, Dawn, what will we do without you? I don't know. Anon, everybody. Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
all
Bye.
right. Thank
Bye.
Bye.
you. Thank
Bye.
you.